Namaste, everyone. This is Rebecca Cummings with Rebecca Cummings Yoga and Integrative Coaching. Welcome. Today I am doing a video all about the inner critic. What is it? What can we do about it? How does it happen? And primarily I'm making this video because this is something that I am seeing in epidemic proportions in my one-on-one work with people and in my yoga classes, and it's really, really common. And so the inner critic, it's important to be able to first off be able to discern what the inner critic is and what it isn't. And so the inner critic was it's a term that it's a form of, in psychology we call it an introject. And the introject was a term coined in the early 1900s, early psychoanalytic therapists, where what they discovered was that often as people were developing, the criticism, the judgments, the emotional abuse, and these core kind of beliefs and thoughts that were inherited from external caregivers were now deeply impacting the person today. And the introject doesn't just play that role. There's different developmental roles that it plays, but one of the harmful roles that it can play is the inner critic voice. So let's say you grew up in an environment that was less than optimal, less than ideal, and let's say you had an alcoholic parent, you had a highly critical parent, you grew up in a environment where there was a lot of emotional, physical, or verbal abuse, then it's likely that you will have a strong inner critic voice. So it's basically it's a term that's really speaking to an internalized voice of trauma, and particular developmental trauma. And so how it develops is that, let's say that I get told on a regular basis, whether it's overt or covert, that I am just never gonna do it right, and you can't fix it. Why is it that you're always doing this? You're never doing this. Then when we grow up and we develop, and it becomes really scary to make mistakes. It becomes really scary to be anything less than perfect. But you know what? Perfection doesn't exist, and you don't have to be perfect. You don't even have to be close to perfect. And so often people that are talented, skilled, powerful, who are incredible artists and leaders and healers and all kinds of things, engineers, whatever it is, will hold themselves back in their personal lives, in their financial lives, in their career lives, because the inner critic is so strong and they're so terrified to make mistakes. So what can we do about it? And first of all, I think it's important to name the inner critic. Name it. Give it its own, like, it could be Judgy Ralph, okay? Like, literally give it a personal name, so when it's coming up, say, okay, here's Judgy Ralph, okay? Here he is, and it's really strong for me right now. Now, this is the moment where we give ourselves that pause and that break. And I really personally love the self-compassion breaks, and a lot of the work of Kristen Neff really follows this. So, and she has a whole list, I'll put a link in the notes here, a whole list of 5, 10, 30-minute self-compassion breaks that you can try. But really what you're doing when you're giving yourself self-compassion is that you're rewiring and speaking to your inner child. Compassion is a necessary part of early developmental growth. And if you were not met with compassion, with empathy at a very young age, I'm talking like pre-verbal stuff, it's going to make it harder to regulate your nervous system. Anxiety will tend to be a lot higher. Perfectionistic techniques. I'm messing up all kinds of words here, so I'm not going to let my inner critic come in with all these words I'm messing up today. But perfectionistic qualities will tend to be stronger. So when you're giving yourself self-compassion breaks, you're literally rewiring that earlier part of your nervous system. So the next thing that you can try, and I highly recommend Kristen Neff's work again, but the next thing is to do what we talked about in an earlier video, which is uncensored journaling. Getting all of the voices, all of the thoughts, all of the core beliefs driving you out on paper. And this is really effective, especially with anxiety. And where there's anxiety, there's often a very strong inner critic. So they kind of work simultaneously together because there's this chronic fear of like, what's going to happen? I don't think I'm enough. I don't think I have enough skills for this. A lot of that imposter syndrome type of thing is ruled by the inner critic's voice. And so writing it all out, you can start to explore, when did I first hear this voice? When did I first take on this belief? When did I first, was I told this, or I remember feeling this way? And what would I tell that little part of me now, that inner child part of me now? What does she need to know? And so these are really powerful explorations. And a lot of what the self-compassion work is that voice. It's reparenting yourself, is giving yourself the warmth, the nourishment, and the reminder that you are loved no matter what, repairing that part. So after that, I have remember that perfection, just like we talked about, perfection is just another neurosis. Okay, if you get something perfectly right, it doesn't actually exist. And so many of us, and we've talked about this already, being terrified and making those mistakes. But the thing is that we need those mistakes in order to grow. And actually, what I have found is that as I've grown and made healthier choices and, taken on jobs or, contracts with other people, or independent work and contracts with other people, that when there was a mistake made and I wasn't belittled for it, I wasn't told, your mistake, you should be ashamed of yourself, whatever it was, that actually repairs a lot of the inner critic voice. So in a way, we need those mistakes, because it's going to give us more information, about, it's usually connected with jobs, right? So about the job where we're working, the environment where we're working, and it's going to, and when it's met with, here's an opportunity to grow. This doesn't mean that you're bad. We still want you to be here, right? You haven't lost your job. Here you are. It really it gives that opportunity to repair that. Now, let's say that you do make a mistake on your job and you are berated. You're just reliving these early childhood experiences again. That's going to give you more information about whether or not to even keep that job, whether or not you want to grow in that position, whether or not you need to make a different choice, because you're basically at a job where all of your old wounds are being picked at again and again. And that's not healthy either. So making mistakes gives us more information about how others are in relationship with us and how we can be in healthier relationship with ourselves as we are today and at the age we are now. Okay, so the next thing that I have, and the last thing I'll just speak about today, is to speak words of upliftment to yourself and be willing to receive those words from other people and to offer those words of upliftment to others. So the inner critic is a hardwiring voice that is on the lookout. It's hypervigilant, doesn't want to make mistakes. So it can also translate as being able to be hyper vigilant around other people. So I want you to practice in the next week or couple of weeks being complimentary to others. So let's say you see something, it can be anything, like something someone is wearing or something that they said or that they did that you really appreciate. Say that out loud and practice what it's like to offer words of upliftment and grace from others. And the other side of this is being willing to receive those words of upliftment and grace yourself. There goes another mistake that I'm not going to judge myself about. So being able to receive compliments. So when someone says, wow, you did that really well, or wow, the way you put your hair today is incredible. Not just writing that off and saying, oh, well, it's it's a matter of luck and, it's really not a big deal. It's pretty easy. No, receive that. Say thank you. Thank you for that. And that is going to rewire a lot of this in early programming. So I hope you found this brief video helpful. Please subscribe, like, share the video. You can find me on Instagram at Taking Care Yoga. You can find me on Facebook, Rebecca Cummings Yoga and Somatic Health Coaching. I'd love to stay connected with you, sharing your thoughts. Tell me how the inner critic shows up for you in your life, and let's stay connected, and let me know if there's any way I might be able to support you, or if you have any questions, please write me below. Thank you so much, and have a beautiful rest of your day. Namaste.